Is veganism privileged?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many serious issues of inequality and environmental racism and privilege. And we could talk about it for hours, but personally, I mean, I find it really dismissive, and I find it, frankly, it pisses me off when I see this kind of, people commenting with just this blanket, okay, well, it's privileged, or, it's too expensive.
It's a white thing.
Yes, I think it really dismisses all the people of color and low income people out there doing the work. And why shouldn't we be doing more work to reach these people? These, people in low income communities, brown people, Black people, who are given nothing, who are given no resources. Why shouldn't we be talking to them about the risks they're facing when they're facing some of the most dire, and they have higher rates of cancer, heart disease, stroke, related to the lack of resources? And it's by design that way.
Right. Well, I want to provide people with actual tasks and actions that they can take after listening to this episode if they're in a similar situation. So first, my first question would be, what changes would you like to see implemented in these communities to make plant-based food more accessible for all?
Yeah, I mean, of course, you all touched on subsidies. That would change the world. If there were not subsidies for these industries, it would revolutionize everything. It would change the world for us and change the world for animals and this planet. And the government could snap their fingers and make a big difference. But the reality of it is, we know that's going to require a whole cultural shift.
Crazy.
And I think that is where each and every one of us in our personal choices comes into play. And so I think the biggest change I want to see personally is every single individual person realizing our power as consumers and taking action and looking into our community to get involved instead of, just commenting or writing being vegan off. Do something. Something. If you don't like the system, do something about it in any way that you personally can. There are amazing organizations out there in Detroit. We have several that are, urban farming initiatives run by, Black and brown people in their communities. In Tulsa, there's Food on the Move that does a lot of pay as you can and free drive up services. And Los Angeles has Support and Feed, which is incredible, doing incredible work. And I know, Jamie, you mentioned they're trying to kill us earlier. People can do screenings in their local community about this issue. You can do food demonstrations. I used to do those in LA for PETA, and there's no better way to win people over than with delicious vegan food. So donating vegan food to food banks. I mean, I think in my mind, the biggest thing that people can do is get involved and make a difference to change it and use their power to do something.
Right. I mean, you're saying all of those things. And I'm like, yeah. But I'm like, but I didn't even know about all those things.
What are some resources that helped you personally along the way?
Well, I think there are, several, but I do want to touch on, I think you're totally right. The privilege of educating yourself. I think it's so important. Just like you're getting involved with anything in life, you're going to have to look into it a bit and figure out what's going to work best for you and what resources exist in your community. And I think, to your point, this is an institution that's made this way by design, and it's systemic. And, they don't want us to do the Googling to figure out how to, the issues with animal agriculture or eating food or the risks that we have by eating animals. So I think that's a really important part, that we do have to break out and try to see this as a social justice issue, just like we would anything else, and educate ourselves on it. Because something I always think about with this topic is, I feel like it's so easy to feel like we have no control over something in our life. And sometimes we don't. There's lots of things we don't have control over. But I think every single human being is in a position of privilege when it comes to how we treat animals. And so we really have a obligation to do the work, to try. No one's perfect. I'm surely not, but to try and not just, write it off as nothing. So I wanted to say that too, so I think that's really important.
So well said. And before you touch on the next part about resources, I just want to say that you're absolutely right. Like, this is something where we shouldn't be taking baby steps, because if we compared it to any other social justice issue, you wouldn't say like, oh yeah, let me just accept some gay people, or oh yeah, okay, sometimes it's okay to be racist. Like, you wouldn't say that. So it's like, why is it okay sometimes to like literally pay to have an animal violently killed?